Spencer, thanks so much for joining us. Just to give you guys a high level of Spencer and I, we're close. We talk a lot about how we can get more Utah State students, similar to what Austin's dealing with, right, to realize how glorious it is out in Wichita, Kansas. So please, if you're interested in checking out a great opportunity out there, I'd highly recommend either of these guys. But a little background on Spencer. Graduated from Utah State, dual major, finance economics, class of 15. And then from there, I think you've just been bouncing around Koch and substitute Koch ever since. He's lived.
Yep.
Yeah, he's lived both in Kansas. He was, let's see, were you in Salt Lake for a bit? And then, no, maybe not.
Nope.
I know you were in Atlanta, Georgia for a long time. You bounced all over the place.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Spencer's great. We've got a fairly large community of Aggies out at Koch Industries, both in Wichita, Kansas, and nationwide. So I'd encourage you greatly to pay attention, take some notes. Spencer, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate that. Just a couple of preludes that I'd give. First of all, I'm glad that I was able to catch the end of Austin's presentation. I've been good friends with Austin for a while, and great to see Aggies all over the place succeeding. So that's great to see. And I'm much less engaging than Austin is. So I'm hoping to fly through my presentation portion, and then glad to see a lot of you have your cameras on. I'm hoping this can be a little interactive, and I'll leave some time here at the end to answer some questions, but I'll kind of fly through some of my thoughts here. Put together a couple of slides, nothing too robust here. Let me share my screen. But I wanted to take a moment to just kind of talk about career finance broadly. And I'll give another preface that corporate finance is a very broad topic with a lot of broad roles and opportunities. So if I am talking too much in the abstract at any point, feel free to wring your hands at me or interrupt me, John. But kind of broadly, how I describe corporate finance is the capability is in charge of the governance and the oversight of all the financial activities and investment decisions that a firm makes. So as that description sounds, it's very broad, and it as a result encompasses a lot of different industries. So I could talk about, just from Koch Industries perspective, we play in a lot of different manufacturing industries, trading, software, technology, but beyond even what you'd see at Koch Industries, retail, healthcare, CPG companies, pretty much industry agnostic. Opportunities are going to be available in corporate finance. Just the nuances of responsibilities and the focus areas for the type of financial activities and investment decisions that you'll be making in a specific firm or a specific industry can vary quite a bit. As John was alluding to a little bit in my background, I could tell you a little bit about my roles and then segue how the roles that I've had kind of paint a little bit of a picture for what corporate finance can look like. So I went to Utah State and graduated in 2015. I had interned the summer previously at Koch Industries in kind of a supply chain optimization role, where I was looking at some of the inventory positions that we had taken in the past and the exposure that we had taken in certain points in time, and analyzing whether those were good positions, bad positions, if we had been better off doing some trading activities and whatnot. So that was interesting. And then when I came back full time, I was at one of our operating companies called Invista, which is a manufacturing company of polymers and fibers, and was in a financial analyst role. So in that role, I would say I was more short-term focused when it came to financial activities, analysis, and investment decisions. So I was interested in going a little more long-term strategy. And from there, I transitioned into a business development role. And between those two different roles, one like I said, was a little more long-term focused than the financial analyst position, but broadly, some of the responsibilities that I had in those were things like point of view development, framing of investment decisions. That could be things as small as what I was alluding to previously, like inventory positions, or it could be as long-term as like capital investments in machinery or sites, or even potentially mergers and acquisition kind of activity. So I did some of that, and then had some responsibilities for just day-to-day financial analysis of the performance of the business, any opportunities we had around maybe contracts, pricing, things like that. So very broad. And I'd say that that is pretty indicative of the breadth of opportunity that you could experience in a career of within corporate finance. So as I alluded to in my own experience, there are more short-term and long-term types of roles, at least here at Koch. A lot of the finance concentrations are starting to, if I was to paint a Venn diagram from maybe 5 or 10 or plus years ago about what a lot of accounting type roles looked like and what a lot of finance type roles looked like, there probably wouldn't have been as much overlap as there has been in the past few years, as automation happens and a lot of the more manual processes are getting automated with technology, and it's easier for us to get data, gather insights, and things like that. We're seeing more and more that those two capabilities are starting to merge, and the focus of individuals in those roles is to be much more analytical. So here I flashed up, if you were to start at a company like Koch, here are the types of roles that we might hire someone with a finance or econ or related major for. And I say gave that long preface just because you'll see in some of these that you might kind of get rubbed the wrong way if you've got a mindset of what accounting is, and that it's something that you wouldn't be interested in. But like I mentioned, there's a lot of blurred lines happening, at least at Koch, between those two capabilities. So I've got those up on the screen. I can, if anyone has questions, give a little bit more color into the specific responsibilities that could exist in each of those. But as I've been hopefully painting a consistent picture of, corporate finance roles can be very, very broad. So beyond business development and commercial or financial analyst responsibilities, like I just mentioned, some other areas that we have individuals focus on could be things like treasury, which that's more of a short-term focus on. We could maybe do cash management type of activities, where in the world we store cash and optimize our cash flows. We have short-term investments that we make within treasury as well, depending on what our working capital looks like. So anyway, a lot of different potential opportunities that could exist when you take a career in corporate finance. I am looking at the clock and noticing I'm getting more long-winded than I wanted to. So one other thing that I wanted to highlight in these few minutes that we have is that one other benefit that I see from roles in corporate finance is that while I might throw up a slide, or when you go and look at a company and you see the kinds of roles that we have posted for someone who's graduating in finance or econ, they might in some ways look very myopic or focused, but one of the benefits that I see from people taking roles in corporate finance, and that I've seen in my own career so far, is that it sets you up with a lot of skills that can be translated to unique and interesting career paths. So I've seen in my time people go from being in an analyst role or a business development role and deciding that those skills they developed could be easily transferable to something like a sales opportunity, or they want to go more the management route. And those skills in critical thinking, and efficient decision making and things like that can very easily lend themselves to a lot of really interesting and unique types of opportunities. One last thing that maybe I'll touch on before I open it up for questions is just towards the end of Austin's presentation, I appreciated that he was talking a little bit about the kinds of skills and whatnot that they're looking for in traders. And I would kind of echo some of the things that he said, and then talk a little bit more about at least how we evaluate people at Koch. Some of the things that we're looking for are really focused on the individual skills that you have, because a lot of the knowledge systems across different companies and opportunities are going to be very niche and unique, and we can train people up on that. But some of the skills that we're looking for people to demonstrate are critical thinking, entrepreneurial skills, whether that be in the coursework that you're involved in, the majors that you have. Maybe you're going toward multiple majors and you are showing some of that, or you've got emphasis in analytics or whatnot. Initiative, natural curiosity, strong communication skills, and an aptitude for fast-paced learning. So those are pretty broad, and I think a couple of more specific things that we're starting to put a lot more focus on than we have in the past is what kind of experience you have in data analytics platforms. Microsoft Excel is probably at least the bare minimum expectation that a lot of companies are going to have. But if you've got any experience with basic coding, Python, Tableau, anything like that would be something else that could differentiate yourself and put yourself ahead. So anyway, I've done a lot of rambling, so let me pause there and see what questions you guys have, if there's anything that I can address.
Just one question, Spencer, if you could. No, sorry.
That's all right. Sorry, you cut it in and out there.
No, you're good. Okay. Just one question: what their work-life balance throughout any of these positions, corporate finance, or maybe other positions in investment banking or alternative.
Yeah, sure. And I would say that, at least in my experience, I think a lot of that's going to vary by company as much as specific role. So I know that at least here at Koch, the work-life balance is a pretty big priority for us. So by and large, people are working closer to a normal 8 to 5 schedule for the most part, unless they've got, certain time seasonality in their roles that are going to cause them to be working a lot more during certain times. But I'd say we're definitely a lot closer to the 40, 50 hour a week than the 100-hour a week spectrum.
Thank you for that. Oh, sorry. I've just got a quick question.
Sure.
Spencer, try when they speak. I think might be
Okay.
a little bit of a...
There's some feedback. Here, let me stop. Okay.
Yeah, sorry for that. So I'm in the finance and also in the data analytics. I'm doing the information systems. And I wanted to know who would be the best to talk to about that. Would it be you? Who would be good to network with? Because I'm interested in the finance side, but also in the heavy data sifting through Excel sheets, that kind of thing as well. So who would be good to talk to? And then what do the international experiences look like at Koch?
Sure. So at least here within Koch contacts, one person that might be interesting for you to talk to is McLean Marshall. We're going to be doing some recruiting here in the next couple of weeks, so you'll probably have some opportunities if you keep your eyes open and your ears pinned back to engage with him. But he just graduated from Utah State this past year. I think he was a triple major, maybe in MIS, finance, and econ. So he's got kind of same balance of at least interests. And so he'd be someone that'd be interesting to talk to. And in terms of international opportunities, we operate in, I think, 60 different companies. So, 60 countries, sorry, not companies. So there are a lot of opportunities, whether that doesn't always mean that you're working and geographically located in a different country, but in pretty much all of our companies, you're going to have opportunities to at least be collaborating with people in different countries, potentially traveling, and with some unique exceptions, you might be able to relocate there for a time. But I'd say that's more the exception than the rule, at least here.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
This is a quick addition to that, Wayne. I just put McLean, if you don't know him, I just put his LinkedIn in the chat. So feel free to chit chat. Really quick, Peter Harris, are you here? Okay, I didn't see him either. So Spencer, I don't think our next guest has joined on quite yet. So do you have a little bit of extra time to stay on with a couple of more questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple minutes. I see that Austin's still on here too. So if you want to grill him with any other questions, I see he's lingering around.
Go right ahead, anyone. Anyone out there? Any other questions? Okay, well, I'll ask one while we're waiting. Spencer, you've jumped around an awful lot within Koch and the different subsidies, both in role, function, position, the whole works. Talk to us a little bit about what it's been like to be able to make both straight vertical and also lateral jumps within an organization. How has that been beneficial? What are some advice in navigating those kind of moves?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's something that at least here at Koch, we put a lot of emphasis on opening up as many opportunities for you to gain knowledge and skill sets as possible. So in each of the instances where I've changed roles, it's been by virtue of me having conversations with my supervisor about interests that I had and areas that I wanted to expand my knowledge networks. So I alluded to this a little bit originally, but when I was in the financial analyst position, I was interested in getting a little more long-term involved in kind of the strategic work. So they were very gracious in working with me to kind of work a little bit side by side with some of those business development teams to understand exactly what it is that they were doing. And networking with some of the companies and individuals who worked in those. So I had a pretty good understanding of what my life would look like in that role. And I think, advice to more broadly versus just talking about myself, even if you're not in a company like Koch where there are a lot of opportunities like that, similar to what Austin said, I think taking advantage of opportunities to network and ask people about, hey, I'm interested in XYZ thing. More often than not, I find people are very gracious about allowing that. And then I've just found that the benefits have been for me that I've really been able to broaden my skill set and my knowledge and open opportunities as I've opened up, because when I was at Utah State, probably wouldn't have thought that I was super interested in moving to so many different cities over and over the course of the past 5 years. But each time that I've been willing to jump and take different opportunities, it's just opened a lot of doors for me.
I have a question. I meet with a lot of students that are looking into, when they go into finance, they're often looking at financial planning, they're looking at investment banking or commercial banking. What would you say to the people that want to go more into the public finance realm, why they should really consider corporate finance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that first of all, I would encourage people to do a lot of soul searching on exactly what they'd like, because the world looks very, funnily enough, my current role is in a venture capital arm of Koch Industries. So I'm getting a little bit of the understanding of the two different sides of the office here, going more the private equity venture capital route versus corporate finance. And I think the work-life balance is very different. The breadth of opportunities are pretty different in terms of, like I was mentioning before, when you're working in corporate finance, there are a lot of different industries you can play in. You can become a very deep knowledge expert in certain areas, versus when you're working in private equity or venture capital. At least in the firm that I'm in right now, you're asked to be very broad, look at things with a very quick lens, versus getting very deep industry knowledge. So that can be very different. Work-life balance can be different. Like I mentioned, in terms of breadth of opportunity, obviously there are a lot more corporations that are hiring for analysts than there are VC or private equity or investment banking companies. So those are all things that I think you just have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of exactly what you're looking for. And also just the expectations of those roles. I think a lot of times, at least from my own networking, finding that in a lot of the entry-level positions in some of those other companies are very much 2 to 3 years working pretty rigorously, getting phenomenal experience, and then kind of from there jumping to going and getting a graduate degree or working in another kind of industry or firm or something like that. And it's not that one is better or worse, it's just trade-offs and aligning whatever it is that you're interested in with the opportunities that are available to you. I don't know if that was helpful or just a political kind of response, but hopefully it was helpful.
We got another follow-up question. I think it was great. Another follow-up question from the chat. Sam asks more on the location. Both you and Austin and me have all talked about how great Kansas City is. As an asterisk, guys, I'm originally from the Midwest myself. I call Indiana home, but I've traveled around a bit, and it's all gorgeous. And they're wondering what you like about the location.
Yeah, that's a good question. And also, I mean, frankly, a very important decision factor when you're looking into different companies and jobs. And I'll speak more broadly. I'll talk about Kansas specifically, but I think more broadly, I think that at least for me and my wife, we've found that anywhere that we live, there are just great opportunities to experience different cultures and different lifestyles. And both in Atlanta and in Kansas, we've been incredibly impressed with the quality of individuals that we are able to interact with. And, we moved here in the middle of a pandemic. Actually, I left that part out of my intro earlier, that I took this current role and moved from Atlanta to Wichita in early June. So very crazy time. And, the second that we got here, we felt like the community wrapped their arms around us, and very tight-knit, warm, friendly kind of environment that we really have been able to embrace and enjoy. And there are trade-offs to that versus Atlanta, where we were in a bigger city and some of the larger event kind of opportunities are lessened. But at least for us in our stage of life, that's not a huge trade-off. And we're also very interested in outdoors stuff. And while Utah, that meant we could go hiking and stuff like that. In Atlanta, it meant that we were in a forest and there were a lot of trails that were interesting. And here in Kansas, it means that we're a little more into running and biking and things like that. And the geography changes a bit, but there are a lot of benefits to living in lots of different places, I think.
Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate, Spencer, you taking the time and being willing to fill in a little bit. We still haven't been able to get a hold of Peter. So at this time, everyone, we're going to take a quick, about 5-minute break and just take a breather. Spencer, really appreciate you being willing to stay on. If you guys have other questions, reach out to Spencer. His contact information is in the chat. So thank you so much.
Thanks again. Appreciate it. Good luck, everybody.
We'll be back in 5.